So here you can see this is class AA tracked, and this is a class AA wheeled, so which is of a very short span. So you can see it is only 1.2 meter in length, and similar the width is not that high. You can see it is only 2.35 meter. And similarly, you can see that, but a class 70 vehicle, it's somewhat pretty long compared to that of a class AA vehicle, even though it's 1,000 kilonewton. So in case of a shorter span bridge, assume it's a 5 meter long or 6 meter long, this could be pretty governing compared to that of a class 70 vehicle. And similarly, you can see class A and class B vehicles over here. So they have somewhat very similar load pattern, just that the magnitude is different compared to that of class A is with class B. And similarly, as I have mentioned, you can see that class AA vehicle is 3.6 meter in width, while long, while class 70R is somewhat longer, and it takes, but it has the same magnitude of load. So the next thing is effect of vehicle load. It does not only impact the magnitude of the vehicles. We have other forces that happens due to the vehicle loads as well. For instance, the longitudinal loads, which happen due to braking and acceleration. That is also given in IRC6. And similarly, we have impact factor, or it is called in other codes as dynamic amplification factor. So this happens due to the irregularities that happen on the surface of the bridge, and also due to the location of the vehicle that varies over the location. So in one point, there is a deflection occurs, a deflection that happens due to the loading of the vehicle at a particular point in the bridge. But when it moves to the next location, the same deflection remains, even though the vehicle has moved to the next point. So instead of having the force that is happening for a vehicle at a particular location, you might have the effect of the previous deflection incurred in it. So this happens with the impact factor or dynamic amplification, as it is mentioned in other codes. Then we have also forces due to centrifugal forces that happens due to the curvature of the bridge. And in case of railway bridges, we have certain other effects such as racking forces and derailment forces, as I have mentioned earlier. So this happens specifically in case of railway bridges. So racking is the it's happens along the around the vertical axis. It's a movement around the vertical axis due to it happens in mostly in rails actually, and it is somewhat briefly explained in IRS codes as well. So what are the other variable loads that govern in bridge design? They are seismic loads, then we have wind loads, then hydrostatic loading, then surcharge loading, and also pedestrian loading. And as I have mentioned, one of the accidental action, that is derailment. Similar to that, we can have other accidental actions as well. So the other accidental actions can also happen due to the case that you might have a highway on the bridge. So we will be designing the vehicle for to be placed in the highway, but the bridge might have pedestrian areas or some other areas on its superstructure where we don't assume that the vehicle will be placed generally. But in certain cases, there is an accidental case where the vehicle moves to those locations. That is one of the accidental loading that we'll be generally considering. And other one is due to the collision with vehicle restraint systems. The vehicle tends to, in certain cases, accidents might happen, and the vehicle can collide with your vehicle restraint system. So those forces also need to be transferred into your bridges. So that is also an accidental action. And similarly, in certain bridges, we have the substructure. So the vehicle does not only move on the bridge, we have cases where the vehicle move under the bridge. So you might have a rail that can impact on your piers. And similarly, if it's a ship or a barge, they can also impact on your substructure, the pier. So these things are covered into the accidental actions. And hydrostatic loads generally govern the movement of the water. This is the force that are incurred due to the movement of water. In certain cases, there is a reduced force in a reduced dead load because of the negative action due to the weight of water. That can also happen. So you won't get the exact benefit that you'll be getting due to compression when you're designing your substructures. That needs to be considered. So there'll be a reduced downward pressure compared to that of if there is no water. That needs to be considered in this case. That is hydrostatic pressure. And also in certain cases in colder regions, which generally doesn't occur in India, but if you're designing for northern European countries, in that case we have to consider the impact of ice or similar huge snow mass that is moving in the water. So that also needs to be considered for water loading generally on the substructure. And other important things are wind loading. Wind loading is pretty significant in case of long-term bridges. They can have very devastating effect. So if someone is familiar with Tacoma Narrows Bridge, it uh, it just opened and it failed within first 2 or 3 days of its opening. So it's one of a classic failure. That's a suspension cable bridge. So it was not designed for the shapes of the bridge was not designed for uh, the interaction with the wind. So that caused the failure of this bridge. And seismic loading is something pretty important in India that makes our bridges somewhat looking very heavy compared to that of other country counterparts. If you are looking any bridges in Europe, other countries, our bridges you might feel that it's somewhat heavy. The reason could be that of the seismic loads. That is one of the other main thing. And pedestrian load is another traffic load we'll be considering in case if it's just a pedestrian bridge. And surcharge loading is the type of loading that will happen in your abutments in case the vehicle is not on the bridge but is on the approach. So this would add some additional soil pressure to your bridge. So this is called surcharge. So the next one is analysis. So analysis is generally performed using various softwares with the help of softwares. Unless it's a very simple bridge where we use simple static methods of analysis with Excel. We place the loads and we design them. Sorry. The analysis generally performed in case of 3D finite element analysis model with completely shell elements in case if it's a very long span bridge, and if it's a steel bridge where we need to know the buckling shapes of the bridge. So in that case, we use a complete 3D shell element model. In case if the bridge is not that complex, in certain cases, we might use shell and beam elements. A shell element is one where it's similar to a slab, and a beam element, as you know, it's a three-dimensional element, but it has only a line. It doesn't have a surface. And similarly, in case of other complex bridges, lesser complex bridges, we'll be using grillage elements. Grillage is we model the beams, that is the beam elements to be equivalent of a shell. So in case we'll be making multiple slabs instead of making a slab with shell element in the software, we'll be using multiple number of beams to represent the shell element that is being placed. So that is done using grillage analysis. And the next case would be, as I mentioned, it's a simple Excel or other tools are used to design. That is called, we generally mention it as meter strip analysis. We make a unit meter of the bridge and we generally design it. So that is generally done for in case of minor bridges such as culverts or integral bridges, which are very short and span and doesn't require to be so tedious compared to the effect. They don't we cannot optimize much with the help of shell element analysis in those kind of bridges. So it wouldn't make much of a difference. In that case, we'll be making a simple hand calculation in this case. What I mean is Excel calculation in that case. And the last one is the softwares we'll be using for design. So generally, the software we'll be using is STAAD. That is the basic design software which is preferred in India. And there are quite a lot of other companies which are working for Europe nowadays. So especially UK, then you can see Denmark, Germany, or France, and those kind of countries, and Sweden or Norway as well, in certain cases. So Middle East is one of the main locations where India designs. Actually, quite a lot of Middle East works are being done from India. For instance, in companies like Atkins or uh, Sistra, those kind of companies, they take Middle East work due to the shortage of labor. The design work is delivered from India. So in that case, we'll be using different softwares for various purposes. So Lusas is generally preferred in UK. That is one of the most preferred softwares in UK. And Midas is a Korean software which we'll be using it for design of bridges again. And Sophistic is similarly a German software which we are using. And also Autodesk Structural Bridge Design. This is also one of a very interactive software which is not only used for analysis of the bridge, but it's specifically used for shorter and mid-span bridges. But it gives a very detailed report. We can use it for section checks, for in case of compression plus and bending acting together. Those kind of things can be designed using ASBD as well, Autodesk Structural Bridge Design. There are quite a few other softwares which are also being used. Similarly, similar to StatPro, there is a thing called RM Bridge that is also by BenP. That is also pretty much used for bridge design. In analysis software, we have a lot of design integration using Indian standard codes, that is IS 456 or IS 800. There was not much of integration with IRC codes, which is used for design of bridges. So currently, so to eliminate that effect, in quite a few softwares are used where it is IRC is available. In other cases, we'll be using Excel for design. In quite a few other cases, like where it's a steel bridge design, MathCAD is also one of the preferred method of design. So MathCAD, if you know, it is similar to MATLAB, but without coding, it's somewhat a very simple calculation tool that is also pretty much used in design of the bridges. And other softwares that are used are Oasis and Autodesk Structural Bridge Design, as I have earlier mentioned. So in design, this is ASBD is used for design, not for the analysis part. In this case, you can model a pier with the reinforcements, or model a slab with the reinforcements. Those kind of things can be modeled, and you can check for the forces that you're extracting from the software. You can use some other software and you can check it over here. So as I mentioned earlier, this ASBD is somewhat uh, pre-built, and it has certain inbuilt elements such as abutments and those kind of things. It cannot be used for typical solutions, where not for typical solutions, very it is used for typical solutions where the same thing can be used again and again. So that is very useful with ASBD. But in case where a unique solution need to be provided for a particular a bespoke solution, as we have mentioned, so it's specific to a particular type of bridge. In that case, we'll be using ASBD with the help of design. So in that case, we take the forces from the software and we input over here, and we tend to model the deck or the pier and put the reinforcements over there, and then we design the same. So this is only for design checks, that is compression plus bending, and we make interaction curves or interaction surface, and we check for the capacity for the particular force. That's what is being done with OSS and ASPD. And in other cases, in quite a few cases, you can see that StatPro, Sophistic, Midas, they have integrated design codes in them. So we can directly design in them as well. Same with ASBD, as I mentioned earlier. And geotechnical design, that is performed generally by geotechnical engineers. In very few cases, if it's a simple design, then we structural engineers also tend to solve these things if it's simple. But in case of a complex things, we go for a geotechnical engineer. So even though there is a pile or a other types of foundations, it's let it be a shallow foundation or a caisson or a well foundation, we structural engineers design only the steel and concrete part. So what is the type of reinforcement that needs to be provided, what are the amount of concrete that needs to be provided, what is the cover, those are the specifications we generally give. But the depth up to which the caisson has to go inside the soil, or the depth up to which the pile has to go inside the soil, so that it reaches a hard strata, or where it generates enough friction to resist the forces, those things are generally designed by geotechnical engineers. It's their part where they come across it. And in case of like integral bridges, it is also very helpful in case where they tend to calculate what is the stiffness of the soil that is being generated. So in case of things like temperature expansion, temperature contraction, the soil tends to resist it and we generate compression. Those kind of things are very useful. So they help us with stiffness calculations as well. So generally, even though we do all the calculations, the final output doesn't, the client may not necessarily require the calculations. In most of the design cases, they will be requiring a drawing. That is our main selling thing. So that's what we provide to the final client. So in most of the Indian cases, we generally tend to provide the drawings, but in quite a few projects, we are using BIM models. That is one of the most preferred methods in Western countries nowadays. So we make the entire thing in 3D. So the entire thing is made in 3D. We also model the reinforcement. We also model what are the materials that are provided for outer edges, such as in case of bridges, it's bearing coat and those kind of things. So what is the depth that has to be provided? Everything is made in a 3D model and it is submitted to the client. They can make sections and drawings out of it, and they can execute it in the site. And in certain cases, they can. This is also used in quite a few companies to avoid accidents in certain cases, such as how to make the construction, so how to visualize it, and those kind of things are also very helpful with BIM. In certain cases, we are using software such as Revit and Tekla for BIM modeling. There is also a significant project which I came to know was in UK. It was Hinkley Point C that was completely made using BIM model. They never used any drawing. They used tabs and other things to make the entire model, and the concrete was poured in order without any drawings or charts inside, actually. So that is also being done in quite a few projects. So only the BIM model is sent to them, and they look at it in a 3D visualization, and they make it accordingly. Trends that we are using in bridge engineering. So I haven't mentioned everything possible, but basic things which we are familiar with, I have mentioned it over here. So the first one would be parametric design. So with the help of Sophistic or quite a few other softwares, we use it with a very interactive software called Grasshopper, which is similar to 3ds Max, which the architects use for visualization. So here what we use is we make the model somewhat very parametric. So you can see on the right side, you can see inputs. So it has span, then you can have height over here, and the arch bridge will be entirely generated. The model will be created. So we have various inputs like number of hanger cables over here. We have input like what is the width of the bridge, and what is the number of transfer wind bracings, what is the number of cross beams over in the bridge. So based on that, the model will be generated in a FEA model, and based on this we'll be doing the analysis. In certain this bridge might look simple, but in certain other cases it might be very complex, where we have a large number of cross beams, where we have large number of bracings. In that case, this parametric model could be very helpful if you're going to repetitively use it. So that could be a large project where you have like 20 kilometers of bridges. uh, for instance, MTHL, Mumbai Trans Harbour Link, it's almost 20 kilometers bridge from Navi Mumbai to Mumbai. So in that case, we have multiple spans, but these spans might be of the same type, which is a box girder. So in that case, they can use these kind of models where they can shape the size of the width. Uh, they can give inputs such as width, what is the height of the box, what is the outer thickness of the slab, and those kind of things. And multiple model software add up on Grasshopper, that is called Paragrain. So Paragrain generally is a software where if you define what is the purpose of the building, or if you give a particular frame type of the thing, so it tends to optimize the structure for yourself for a particular type of loading. So for in the bottom one, you can see it might look vertical. It's a simple arrangement for a cantilever. So the force is applied horizontally at the top. That is what this is being analyzed for. So how much the material can go least, that is being analyzed over here. So this will be the least amount of materials that we can optimize. So instead of giving a complete rectangular beam, we can give a truss in this arrangement that would give the best benefit out of the structure. That could be the most optimized structure. So that's what we are trying to do with uh, newer software such as this is done using Grasshopper, but with a built-in software called Paragrain, or there are other methods as well. So Paragrain uses optimization technique, while there are other Optimus. So Optimus uses meta heuristic operation optimization. So this is more statistical way where it gives particular localized solutions where it might not be the final optimized solution, while this one uses all the methods, and but it would take a longer time. So those kind of optimization are done using these kind of softwares as well. So it can so this one which I have presented is for Grasshopper and Rhino. Similarly, it can be done with Revit and Dynamo as well. So that is the parametric input part of Revit that is done by Autodesk. And similarly, we have other trends such as 3D printing. So we nowadays see a lot of 3D printers using plastic and other elements. So that is used for building small elements, which we can use as GIFs, or we can see 3D printed images of people. Uh, those are being done over in localized areas, but we are also using it for design of bridges. There are a few bridges that are designed in Netherlands that have been implemented using 3D printed methods. They were hollow bridges, and they were tensioned later. So they were built using the basic shape was built using the 3D printer, and then they were tensioned or compressed. We can say pre-tension or compressed. And next one is also FRP bridges. FRP material is also gaining significant advantages nowadays, and you can see that this has been already used for quite a while in oil and gas industry, where they were using it for localized materials. There were steel frames, but the deck and other solutions were generally provided using FRP materials. Nowadays, FRP sections are also available with pre-drilled holes and those kind of things. So they are also being used for quite a lot of new bridges here. So if you're familiar with it, there is a beautiful TED talk by Ian Firth, who was a ex-president of Institution of Structural Engineers UK, who has mentioned it earlier that we are using steel bridges for suspension cable bridges, which can be up to 2 kilometers long. That the current limit is 2 kilometers long, which is Akashi Kaikyo Bridge. So that is the longest single span cable suspension cable bridge. But if we are using carbon fiber reinforced polymer, we can stretch this up to 10 kilometers. So that is the benefit that we are getting using FRP bridges. So carbon fiber reinforced polymer is also an FRP if you are familiar with it. So that is also being explored nowadays quite a lot. and but things like glass fiber reinforced polymers and those kind of things are pretty much used very significantly now, very much nowadays. Even colleges in India like IIT Madras, they are using these kind of materials for building houses, GFRP materials using. Career path. So if you're planning to enter into design as a design engineer in bridges, so basically the entry level will be graduate or trainee engineer. That will be the offer by most of the companies for 0 to 5 years. Then you'll be in design engineer. As a design engineer, you can develop yourself. On a mid-level, from 5 to 15 years, you can develop yourself from a graduate or trainee engineer to senior design engineer or a project manager. Some people also tend to move towards the site as well, and the stage it's somewhat very flexible over there as they move up the ladder, so where they can also form bonds over there, and they can move up as site support engineer. They tend to support the site also. And if you're still staying in the field of design, then you can move further as head of the departments, or also move into senior management positions in later stages as head of the companies or things like that. So that's it about the presentation, and thank you.